Hello, everybody. This is Douglas Allen Frazier, and this is the Douglas Allen Frazier Show. There's a lot of things that I want to discuss, so let's get to it right now. Well, again, hello, everybody. This is Douglas Allen Frazier with the Douglas Allen Frazier Show. This episode has been a hard one for me to work on in terms of should I or shouldn't I even share what's here? Will it or won't it make a difference? So I'm going to just go ahead because I believe that there are people that need to hear this. So if it's something that makes a point for you and you want to share it with somebody else, great. If you don't, that's okay. But there are several issues which have come up in the last couple of weeks that have really tugged on me of what to say, how to say it, how to get it out. The first issue, of course, that has struck me has come out of what is going on with Hillary Clinton and the FBI and with the Department of Justice, etc., in terms of a difference in how the laws are used for people, those in high places and those in not so high places like you and I. But the other issue is much hotter and also much more sensitive because it deals with a much broader sensitivity, and that has to do with what is going on in America with the shooting of black men in their communities by the police, and then the viral nature that takes place after a very unfortunate event takes place. What happens afterwards, as was fully demonstrated just about 2 days later, I believe, after the shootings in Minneapolis and Baton Rouge, what took place in downtown Dallas. Now, you know, I only live from that area about 35 miles away, 30 to 35 minutes away, depending on how the traffic is. And I'm going to add a lot of things in here because there's a lot that needs to be discussed. The first thing I'm going to say is, first of all, I'm almost 70 years old. Now, those of you that know me, or those of you maybe that seen my picture going, you got to be kidding, and said, no, it's true. I was born August the 6th, 1946. If you do the math, on August the 6th, 2016, which is just a couple of weeks away, I will be 70 years old. So I would say in my lifetime, I have seen a lot of things dealing with how the races in our nation have progressed. I can say this, as I grew up in Southern California, north of Los Angeles, in a place called Ventura. I had a wonderful childhood. I had a wonderful time growing up with my black friends. Not that I had that many, because there were not that many that lived in where I went to school. But I'll put it this way. My dad was a football coach, and many of the athletes on his teams over many years were young black guys. And I got to know them as a young kid. I still remember one day my youngest brother, who had cerebral palsy and had some challenges in walking, and he brought his bicycle one day to the practice field for football. And one of the young guys, I'm not going to reference his name, but he was a young black guy, just a tremendous guy. He got on my little brother's bicycle and tried riding it. It was a hilarious picture. In fact, I believe it was posted in the yearbook for that year. Our family didn't grow up, I believe, with any prejudice per se. We treated people because they were people. If they needed help, they got help. I can recall that one of my dad's football players, a black football player, had some problems at home for a while, and he came and lived in our home for, I think, a week or 10 days, something like that. The problem was resolved, and things just flowed on smoothly. I went to school with some of his younger siblings. But you see, that was an era where we really, I guess in my generation where I grew up. Now, I can't speak of all places, and I'll get to that in a moment, but we just treated people as equal. I have a classmate that wanted to date one of our black friends. Her parents didn't like that. Okay, that was their era. That's what they saw. And it caused some sort of a rift. And this is in the 60s. It caused a rift between my classmate and her parents, and the two people went their separate ways and have had good lives ever since. But you see, I grew up in the era also of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King. When I was a senior in high school, I went to the LA Coliseum with a busload of young people and some adults from our church to the LA Coliseum to listen to Martin Luther King. There was probably 80 to 90,000 other people in the LA Coliseum that day. That event made an impact on my life. A few years later, I joined the Air Force. And one of my first training areas was in the South, in Mississippi, in Biloxi, Mississippi. I can recall one day going fishing in one of the areas in Biloxi, sitting out and having a good time. And a black gentleman came up, sat beside me, and we had a wonderful conversation. I was 20 years old. This man, I suppose, was in his late 50s, maybe even mid-60s. It was hard for me to recollect right now exactly, but he was I'll put it this way, he was much older than I was. And yet he was calling me sir. And I gently just said, "Sir, you don't need to call me sir. I need to call you sir, out of respect." And you see, those are some of the things that I grew up with, and that's just been a part of me. I have a lot of black friends, and most of the times I don't even refer to them as being black. They're just my friends. But sometimes by definition, for some people to understand where I'm coming from, I have to reference the fact that they are a Afro-American or a black American, but they're an American. They're my friends. I know this has been a number of years ago. We were living in Tucson, Arizona, and one of my friends was a pastor in South Phoenix. If you know anything about South Phoenix, it's a tough area, mostly of Afro-American or Mexican-American descent in that area. And it was really funny. We got some interesting looks and comments riding around together in that area. And at that time, I had a Mercedes-Benz with very dark windows. And the conversations usually lent themselves as that, I wonder if these two guys are drug dealers or not. But anyway, this man, his wife, and his family were like my family. He was younger than I was. And we had a tremendous time in the time that we spent together. And every so often we would see each other. I haven't seen him in a number of years now. But I know as we shared some things together, here's some of the things that he told me. This is coming from a black man's perspective as he grew up. As his parents had moved from the South, from Georgia, I believe it was, from Georgia into Phoenix, Arizona. And he said this, that his dad told him. He said, in the days of segregation in the South, in Georgia, he said, we were much better off because the black community supported itself. There were black businesses, there were black businessmen, and we supported each other. And yes, we had white customers too, but we supported each other. And we were strong for it. Now his dad and his dad's family, they moved from Georgia to Arizona. And what do you think his dad did? He started another business when he got to Arizona. The other thing that my friend told me was this. As a pastor in the community of where he was in South Phoenix, there were a number of churches. But he said, I am the only black pastor in a black church that is living in my own community. The other black pastors have moved out of the community and they only come in when they need to. That was a telling thought for me. First of all, of the character of my friend and the love that he had for God and for serving the people of his community. You see, what he was telling me, that he had made some choices. He had listened. And as a result of the choices that he made, that his parents made, he was able to get a very good education, going to Arizona State University. His brother also, I believe, went to Arizona State, outstanding football player, and played for the LA Rams for a while. I met a couple of his other friends that were also outstanding athletes and had professional careers. But you see, what I'm saying is all of those people made choices. All of my friend's children, which he had 6, have gone on and had great educations, gone to university, graduated, have families of their own, and are succeeding in life based upon the choices they made and being raised in an atmosphere where I believe that they believe simply that all lives matter. Because we were in the type of a business arrangement at that time where it didn't matter what your background was, what your color was, where you came from. If you wanted to join with us, we were going to help you to succeed in life. So you see, I come from a background that says all lives matter. All lives matter. I don't care what your color is. I'm going to look at your character, your integrity, your honesty, your willingness to go and do, to go and serve. And as a Christian, that you understand what Jesus said, you're going to show who you are and your love for God as you love other people. And Jesus did not put a color barrier on it. I go around the world today and I'm in various different cultures. And I share with them the love of God, how it can make a difference in their lives. This is probably going to be a 2-portion episode, if you will. This is part 1. But this is where I see there have been some major flaws and great failures in the divide that we see, particularly in the younger generation that did not have the background of growing up in the times of Martin Luther King and those that followed after him. One of the things that Martin Luther King said to his leadership was, do away with all of your baggage of some of the past histories of our ancestors. We are going to make a difference. We're going to change. We're going to share a dream. You know the speech. If you haven't heard it, look it up. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream. It was for all people. Because yes, black lives do matter, as do white lives, and yellow lives, and red lives, and brown lives. All lives. He came from the background of the understanding of the love of God. He has been sharing that and continued to share that. I want you to think about the opposite end. Even back in the 60s when I was growing in, there was an opposing force, just as there is today. And it came from the Nation of Islam. They wanted to have a breakaway. They wanted to cause harm. The Black Panther Party of that time. Now we have the new Black Panther Party. Both parties, if you will, of Louis Farrakhan, who had taken over the Nation of Islam. I don't know who the leader of the new Black Panther Party, I really don't care, but both within leadership, as even some of the leadership of Black Lives Matter, are calling for the going out and shooting of white people. Those are terrorist comments. We have enough challenges with radical Islamic terrorists in this nation. And yes, Muslim people's lives do matter too. And so we need to get back as a nation to the basics, which says all lives matter. People that came to this nation from around the world came to this nation to better themselves, to embrace the freedoms that we have in this nation, to make choices that would better them and their families and their children and their children's children and their great-grandchildren. So you see, it's time that we get to the truth and start also falling on our knees and calling upon God to come and forgive all of us who have had any word curses against one people group against another, against one person against another. I'm going to close right there by just saying, Lord, forgive us. Forgive the words that we may have used to harm other people, even though those words may not have been heard in the hearing distance of those people. We have called out words perhaps that were meant for harm. They were not meant for good. So Lord, forgive us. Bond us together as a people of this nation, of the people of America that say, our lives matter. The lives of our military matter. The lives of our police officers matter. The lives of our children matter. And we have the choice to make a difference starting today. May God bless you all. In Jesus' name, I thank you. In Jesus' name, I thank you. If you're listening to this and are making a choice that said, I am going to make a difference and I am going to add value into the lives of all people. We'll see you again. This is Douglas Allen Frazier, closing out this session of the Douglas Allen Frazier Show.